I answer the second speaker, Dr. Ando Takemasa, to do his presentation first. Yeah, to save time.
Okay. Thanks, Margaret. Okay. Let me start the overview of my presentation. I think everyone knows that Japan was hit by the major earthquake and tsunami on the 11th of the March this year. The damage was huge to the people. About more than 20,000 people died by the tsunami, and also the suffering was very serious in the farmers. So I will focus particularly on the Japanese farmers this presentation. I talk about the Japanese farmers were now challenged by the two things. The one is of course, nuclear accident. The other one is Transpacific Strategic Economic Partnership. This is called TPPA. It's a kind of the regional free trade agreement in the Pacific and Asian region. So I argue that Japanese farmers were challenged by the TPPA and the nuclear accident. Let me move to the nuclear accident. Immediately after Japan was hit by the earthquake and tsunami, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident occurred. The things were high level of the radiation was released by the nuclear plant, and air, land, water was heavily polluted, so the damage was very serious. And the damage was serious, particularly in the people in the Fukushima. They are forced to make a very difficult decision to leave their communities or stay their communities. More than 19,000 people has already been forced to leave their communities, evacuated from their communities. They love the community, but they are forced to leave. And still, many people still in the staying communities, but they are also concerned about the radioactive contamination. Fukushima farmers feel desperate about their future because of that. They are facing the loss from the tsunami. So look at this picture. This was taken by myself on the early April this year. You can see the automobiles and houses and other property were heavily damaged in this picture. Also this one, it was there are many private properties there, but all were blown away, and only the demolished houses are left. Also look at this picture. Can you imagine what was there? That was a rice field. And everything was blown away after the tsunami. And the problem is land salinity, because seawater was blown and on the rice field. So it is said that it will take about 2 or 3 years to recover from the land salinity. Also, they need more 2 or 3 years to recover from to cultivate their land. So total is about 5 or 6 years to recover. But I can say all the damage so far we have seen were very visible, but we can also see the invisible damage to the Fukushima people and Fukushima farmers. This is radioactive contamination. Fukushima is well known as a food supplier of the rice, vegetables, and fruits to the Tokyo and other big cities. So Fukushima provided the food to the big cities. But high level of the contamination was detected in the vegetables produced in Fukushima. That was the end of the March this year. So the government, Japanese government, decided to order the Fukushima farmers district on the distributing their agricultural products in the market. So, and most of the restrictions were already being lifted, but still in the last month, the high level of the contamination was found in the rice produced in Fukushima. So the, still they are struggling against the radioactive contamination. And the third story is an organic farmer in the Fukushima committed suicide at the end of the March. Japanese organic farmers are now in crisis because they built personal partnership with urban consumers from the cities. And consumers who are looking for the safe and healthy food, they built partnership with the farmers, including Fukushima, and consumers give the financial support to the farmers, and farmers provided the organic and healthy and this kind of the very safe food. So I can say this is a Japanese style of the community-supported agriculture, CSS, I think. But this history of the CSA in Japan is now in crisis because many consumers very concerned about the radioactive contamination. So they stopped purchasing the agricultural product produced in Fukushima and its neighboring cities. Look at this picture. This is very beautiful, right? I take this picture in the Koriyama city of the Fukushima in the early April. But cherry blossom were very beautiful, but I have to say, these cherry blossom were highly contaminated. Radioactive contamination was very serious. And this is the organic farmer's cabbage field. He committed suicide at the end of the March, and he felt desperate about his future, and his son had him murdered. We farmers in Fukushima who produced the vegetables were hopeless, and after that he committed suicide. And this is a protest by the farmers in the Fukushima in front of the TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Company's building, and they took the vegetables and to protest, and they expressed their anger. And this also the pictures taken in the front of the TEPCO building. And this farmer, I know personally him, he is also an organic farmer from Fukushima, and he raised a banner, handmade banner. And this banner says that I don't forgive you, TEPCO, for polluting my rice field. So this is a story about the nuclear accident. Let me move to the talk about the Transpacific Strategic Economic Partnership Agreement, TPPA. This is a regional free trade agreement in the Pacific and Asia. USA, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Chile, Peru, Brunei, and Malaysia, Vietnam were participating countries. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda made a decision to begin the talks about Japan's participation in the TPP negotiations last month. And he claimed that joining in the TPPA will help Japan to reconstruct the economy, which suffered heavily from the earthquake and the tsunami. But it's very controversial because it will result in the liberalization in the agricultural market. And Noda says, Prime Minister Noda said that it must expand Japan's export to the other countries, but also liberalizing the agricultural market. And so it means that small farmers will be in crisis if the TPPA is enforced. look at this figure, this table. This is the scale of the farming land in Japan. Most of the farmers were below 1 hectare, and I think it's very small compared to that of the USA and Australia. Here in my field work to the Chongqing, the Chinese farmers scale of the rice field are much more smaller. And also this figure, if the TPPA is enforced and the tariffs would be completely removed, what would happen to the Japanese agricultural product? This is surveyed by the Minister of the Agriculture and Forestry and Fisheries, and they say that rice, wheat, sweet resources and starch origins all were almost gone, disappearing, and also the dairy products, beef, half of them disappear, so that small farmers, peasants will be in crisis. I can say that TPPA will result in the communities, small communities in the local areas in crisis, because most of the farmers will give up their agriculture doing the farming if the TPPA is enforced. And small number of the farmers will stay in the communities, but they have to do the water and forest management in the communities. But many of the farmers will go to the cities to look for their jobs, so they give up their communities. So very small number of people will stay there. So it's very difficult for them to manage their water and forest. And also since Tohoku district, this is a tsunami and earthquake heavily affected area in the north part of Japan. Tohoku district also be in a crisis because the Tohoku district has many small farmers. So farmers are now very angry against the government decision. This is quoted by the rice farmer in the Iwate Prefecture, north part of Japan, tsunami affected area. He says, why did the government do its decision to join the TPP negotiation when it should first reconstruct the economy of the areas in which the people suffer from the earthquake and tsunami? So this is now the Japanese farmer that also facing. So let me conclude. I discussed the Japanese farmer are challenged by the two things. One is the nuclear accident, the other one is the TPPA, Regional Free Trade Agreement. And I can also say many farmers and citizens begin to realize that these two issues, free trade and nuclear power, was closely related. Let me introduce one farmer, organic farmer in Fukushima's quotation. He says, organic farmer says, building a nuclear-free society is a must in defending community-based and ecological organic farming. Since people in Fukushima failed to foster local industry and create employment, they could not but accept the nuclear plant. Jobs in the agricultural sector would be deprived if Japan joined the TPPA. I feel that two issues of the TPPA and the nuclear accident are mutually related on the fundamental dimension. So I can say that nuclear power and free trade are contradictory to the localization. Localization means the power of self-determination in the communities. So this is contradictory to the nuclear power and free trade are contradictory to the localization as well as the sustainability. And I also conclude Japanese farmers are begin to act to reclaim the local stability, to reclaim the power of the self-determination of the community. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ando, for your presentation about farmers suffering after the nuclear disasters. And now, Japan's tragedy again reminds us of another human disasters in Chernobyl. So please, Professor Yakushik, please.
Dear colleagues, I will not repeat the text of my presentation, which is here in this compendium on the pages 93, 94, and which is on the website. I will try to think and present to you some of my thoughts related to this situation which was described in the paper. First of all, what type of event is it Chernobyl disaster which happened 26th of April 1986? It is seemingly the same as in Japan, Fukushima, but a little bit different. From among the technological disasters, we can define two, at least, types. One, a technological disaster, which was led by natural disaster, like it was in Fukushima. And in Ukraine, it is a technological disaster result of a human mistake, just a mistake. The technicians there were in a way playing, making experiments with the mode of action of the station. And they came into a regime of functioning which was disastrous, and they couldn't stop it. And then it happened. I would say, so we should distinguish the disastrous results as a natural disaster leading to destroying technological sites, another human mistake, and the third, which is also very topical and which is dangerous for the post-Soviet world, possible, and already those have happened as a result of worsening of the infrastructure. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it was not investing, the post-Soviet countries haven't been investing enough in maintaining infrastructure. And in any situation, it may happen something terrible in Russia. Last year, there was disaster in one of the hydropower stations, and many other things like that. So, what happened after the 26th of April, when one of the 4 blocks of the nuclear power station in Chernobyl, which is very closely located, even closer than Fukushima to Tokyo, closely located to the capital of Ukraine. First, the experts were thinking, oh, it will be overcome soon. But still, they made the decision to evacuate people. And people were evacuated very quickly without taking anything from their properties. And it happened to be forever. Radioactive cloud went very far away, and it was officially reported by Swedish, then by other Western European countries, and the Soviet Union was silent. So it was the peculiarity of the system which was hiding everything. So I think there are such cases in many communist countries, and it's dangerous for the people. I remember myself, on the 1st of May, we have usually 1st of May demonstrations. It was 5 days after the event, and we went to demonstrate in the central streets of Kiev, when already a lot of nuclear waste was falling on us. The leader of Ukraine, Communist Party leader of Ukraine, was aware of that. He wanted to cancel the demonstration, but he was pressed by Gorbachev and his leadership. No, do not make panic. So now people always remember about that. So I would like to mention the characteristics of the situation. On one side, the Soviet Union was a powerful power, was a very strong power, and it managed to react quickly. It had the resources, it had the necessary technologies, and there was a national unity mood. Everybody was ready to sacrifice their lives. We at that time were saying that those fire brigades were acting as kamikaze. And now we saw again in Japan happening like that. 17 of our fire brigade people, they died in a couple of days. They knew that they are going to die, but they had to say. So first couple of days, like in Japan, it was either the whole country will survive or it will be destroyed. So they managed to stop the process of total destruction. And the Soviet Union was that country who was able, like Japan, because of the resources and because, well, I would say it's a kind of traditionalism which keeps people together. And in the situation of today, when there is a kind of neoliberal model, and when there is just lack of energy in the people, I don't know how we are ready to face such situations. We are not as strong as in the morally strong, not so technologically strong as at that time in the Soviet Union as in Japan. And there was a cooperation of all regions of the Soviet Union. People were sent from all over the parts of the country. At the same time, there are many negative aspects in how the situation was treated. So secrecy. We, for example, were not even able to test what is the level of radiation in the places where we live. Police would come. Well, first, we didn't have the devices, and if we got, I got through my friends who, because I was teaching at the law department, I asked police, and they gave me, but they said, please do it, do not show it to others, because there might have been a serious problem with that. In hospitals, later, when people started dying, it was not registered because of the nuclear contamination, but for some other diseases. So, secrecy and forging the sources. Then, again, another side of traditionalism. I think it's part of Russian imperial tradition that the leaders didn't care about individual people. They cared about the whole society as it is, about the state. So individual people were sent there where it is dangerous, where it was possible not to send them, and to give them better equipment. Like in the Second World War, Soviet Union lost more than any other country, not only because of cruelties of Hitler, which was the worst case, but also because our generals were not trying to save human beings. So something like that was there, and we need to think about it that in the future we think about the whole society, and also we try to save lives of those who are the most, who dare, who have the audacity to act. The zone of 30 kilometers was established around Chernobyl, and people were evacuated to other places, and there was also a negative aspect of Soviet type of planning. Settlements for them were massively constructed in the places where people lately didn't want to live. So wasting of resources. I want to compare to what was said about Japanese situation, but some people, or many Japanese, were afraid of those who come from contamination zone and discrimination of those who suffered. In Ukraine, in the former Soviet Union, there were no such cases. We were not afraid of that. I do not know how it happened in Japan to have this attitude. And at the same time, it was much worse in comparison with Japan's situation when Japan were not robbing that property which was there. Some of our unconscious people were coming, taking all out of there and bringing to the places where there was no radiation. So that was one of the signs of low consciousness of some strata of the population. So what happened afterwards? The special status for Chernobyl zone affected people was established. People got higher pensions, special better health care, got free housing, get special treatment in access to education, and it is still preserved in Ukraine. But the situation totally changed when there was a kind of socialist welfare state with the resources, with the respective attitude. Now the country doesn't have enough resources, and social morals are different. So now the pensions are not paid in full, and with the populism which exists in the fight between the parties, each party, when it is in the opposition situation, demands more and more funds for those who are affected by the Chernobyl disaster, and there are more than 3 million of such people. So in law, they prescribe additional funds to be allocated, but the budget doesn't have them. So now what happened, that the social organizations representing Chernobyl affected people, they took two ways of fight for their rights, which are there in the law but not implemented fully. First, they went through the court system, and the courts in individual case was allocated the whole amount which was necessary to pay to them during the last 10 years when populistic policies have started. So from among these 3 million people, maybe 2, 3, 5,000 people got these huge amounts of money for the whole 10 years. But then the state saw that pension fund just has no money at all to pay to any pensioners, and it stopped this decision. So it's undermining the rule of law system. When somebody can get its own rights only for themselves, egoistic situation, and when the state, in discrepancy with the law procedure, stops payments. And now mass activities of those people who were supposed to get better pensions and better salaries, they even tried to attack the parliament together with those who are veterans of Afghanistan war, and to do something similar to what happened recently in Kuwait, when the parliament was stormed. So the government now is an utter situation. When these are people who are this government's electorate. 2 years ago, in 2010, a so-called orange regime, most of you heard about Orange Revolution, populistic, ethnic nationalist oriented, globalist oriented, when it stopped its existence and a new party came to power, now it loses its support because it is not able to do what it had promised. So how these opponents of the present on social ground of the present regime are functioning? They do not have the necessary conceptual clarity. They do not have class consciousness. So they act as improvisation, and they are manipulated by the opposition. The government doesn't have budget, and it is destabilizing the situation. What might happen later? Either new sources have to be found, or there will be change of regime without changing the type of the policy. In finalizing, I would like to say that there is an international aspect of this problem. The West has promised a lot to Ukraine as to helping resolve the situation in creating a shelter over Chernobyl. Only this year, necessary money, 111 million euros was collected to start this work. Okay, it's a good decision, but it's just for some time. It's postponing the real decision for after some 20 or 30 years, because it does not change the type of the situation. And it's in any case of natural disaster or new technological disaster, for example, airplane falls there or some terrorist attack, it can destroy the whole country. What is the similar type of possible situation? It's our hydropower stations. Russia last year showed this. And in Ukraine, we have a big cascade of hydropower stations on Dnieper River. So it's of concern to many people, but it's not the subject for public discussion. We're just afraid to start talking about it. And worsening of infrastructure is in all areas. In military depots, every year during the last 5-7 years, somewhere depots are being blown up, and big territories are contaminated and threatened. In some cases, it may be because of corrupt activities of some military. They sell to somebody. Like in Russia, it happens the same. Some parts of ammunition, and then in order to hide it, they blow up. So there are such versions. But usually it's because of responsibility of our people. If you cannot smoke there, for German or for Japanese it means you cannot smoke. For Ukrainian or for Russian, okay, nobody sees that. And there are chemical plants or places already contaminated where contaminated essences were put there. So it may be a situation worse than Indian Bhopal of 1985. We are afraid of that. And let me mention one more thing, that we had nuclear arms in Ukraine in the Soviet times. And what was positive, in my mind, and for majority of democratically thinking people in Ukraine, it's good that under pressure of the United States, of the West, and of Russia, we gave these weapons to Russia. We were not able to manage these weapons, and they were more threat to us. As very often we consider that units of Ukrainian army present bigger threat for the local people than for anybody else. There were cases when a Russian airplane with Jewish and Russian travelers was shot on the Black Sea when Ukrainians were testing their rockets, missiles. One of such missiles went to the direction of Kiev and hit a big house near Kiev. So it's better to get rid of that. And it's necessary to have really serious partners, because while one French company won a tender on some reconstruction activities in Chernobyl area, it's constructed something which was not fit for Ukrainian situation, for Chernobyl situation. Some American companies were proposing to have a depot for nuclear waste inside Chernobyl zone, and under the previous regime it would have happened. Yeah? You see, it's like an international game. In order to push away Russians, Americans come with their technology and propose some other use of that. So we have to be honest when we cooperate, and we have to be efficient. One of the biggest threats for Ukraine is corruption. Corruption became a systemic feature. It's a systemic feature in all post-Soviet world, in Ukraine in particular. When in some places corruption is just elitist, which by the way is a good success of Georgia, under its globalistic approach, pro-American government, many other things. They act as American puppets. They sent 2,000 troops to Afghanistan to fight, to show that they are more pro-American than American nation it is. But their achievement is they destroyed systemic corruption and just left them as a elitist corruption. Like I remember how my Japanese friends were saying about situation in Japan. They said, in Japan it is a pretty corruption. Yeah? So it doesn't touch ordinary people on the grassroots level, on central, but only there on the level of the top decision to decide how Shinkansen will go, this way or that way, somebody pays more money. So in Ukraine we have systemic corruption. And in particular it has such a characteristic how ministries work. We have special ministry for emergency situation which managed Chernobyl zone as well. So each minister, in fact, was supposed to find resources through tender system, other systems to support his party. Yeah? To extract money out of the activities of his ministry to support his party. And a lot extract for their own pockets. Very often it's international cooperation in this corrupt activities we have to overcome this. We have to think more about possible, what I may call after Armageddon situation. How to avoid this, and if we cannot avoid, how we can repair what can be repaired. And the last thing which doesn't deal with Chernobyl, but I was really positively struck when Russians said that they are ready to cooperate with Americans on the issue of preventing asteroid fall on the Earth. I think this is something which comes, which should be one of the the key functions of the states and civilization to see what are the dangers. The biggest danger is if the whole life is destroyed. Who can destroy it? Nuclear war, asteroid from outside, other things. And we have to decide what to do with the dangerous industrial institutions which exist. Chemical plants, in different types of power plants. And this, we really need international cooperation. And Chernobyl may be a source of negative and positive experience which should be used and should be used by our movement as well in order to find solution for Chernobyl, better solution, and for other cases, how to avoid it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This year, we not only have nuclear crisis in Japan, but we also have great flooding in Thailand. Professor Chantana will tell us about food security movement in Thailand. Thank you.
I must say that the situation, the nuclear situation in Japan, as well as in Ukraine and somewhere else, affect Thai people and South Asian people a bit. They're scared, but only a very short time. The nuclear power plants in Vietnam still on. Thailand was hold a bit, and then it's coming back again. And I think that Malaysia also thinking of this, never changed their mind. So very interesting that for a country that far away a little bit from the incidents, cannot capture the essence of the incidents. I will be speaking on food security, and I think one way or the other related to the incidents, but it doesn't happen in Thailand yet. I work as the steering committee of an organization called BioThai. The BioThai is an NGO, it's a foundation, it's an NGO, work on agricultural technology for 2 decades maybe. And they are developing a program, first called food resource based, and then later on they raised another question of food security. This is a work for more or less about less than 6 years. So it's quite new. I can't find, okay. Thailand is a food exporting country. So it's not about typical food insecurity that's happening, as a classic examples in elsewhere where poverty striking is more obvious. Thailand represents another problem. Now this is a campaign the Thai people has done during the Somalia. They mobilized funds. They said, here in Thailand we might be dying of eating too much. So it represents an opposite kind of food insecurity. And from that I would like to draw your attention that food security issues have been evolving to be more complicated and more complex. I think, needless to say, these are things that I already mentioned in the past, yesterday and also this morning, that there are other factors that affect food production, food distribution. So instead of going into detail, I want to go into the situation in Thailand as a food exporting country. On the surface, you don't think that we have problem. But looking closely, you see food exporting country, one among the top 10, have these paradoxes. there are people who are losing land. You know, the food producers are losing land, become landless, and in debt because of one debt to the other, moving from one debt to the other because of the loss. The profit doesn't make profit out of their products. No new farmers. They are old. Maybe the last generation to go. Not reliant on their own food. They produce food, but they have to buy food. So it's this kind of irony. Apart from that, their health, because of the exposure to chemicals from pesticides. And apart from that, Thai people in general getting fatter, including myself. And then, so there are more food-related disease. Food price rising, commodity going down. So it's quite a paradox. We have increasing profit of food industries, particularly in Thailand, but people still starving. So these are paradoxes. You can't say that a food exporting country facing these paradoxes are food secured. So I think the Bio-Thai raised a very relevant and fundamental question for the future of Thailand as a food exporting country. Getting closer to their work, this is maybe what I can share, is the work that I've been doing in the past 5 to 6 years involve the strategies that they believe to change the status of Thai having problem with food insecurity, in terms of a broad definition. They have raised 4 critical issues. One is the food resource base. Food producer cannot produce food unless there are security in also on a food resource base. And I think the Bio-Thai raised a very important question on, particularly on genetic resources. While the problem of natural deterioration, deforestation has been, discussing for some time already. The second strategy is to strengthen community on food reliance. The assumption is that if the community cannot rely on their own food, how can a country, survive? So at the very level, lower level, it's a must that community have to survive. As I said, that generally, community in Thailand, 75% buy food. At least it should reduce the proportion food from buying by being able to produce within the community. And the third is to get back to the traditional knowledge, particularly regarding the plant varieties, seeds, things like that. So it's revival of the knowledge is not to gain confidence, but it's very important for the future of biodiversity. At the moment, Thailand, for example, rice exporting and major rice producing country, have only a few varieties, 1 or 2. You've heard jasmine rice, and dropped all the traditional varieties. Maybe we cannot measure up with India, they have thousands of varieties, but we dropped it. And most communities in the local area use more or less like the same variety. So it's a waste of knowledge. And then the last point is to change the society. So if the mentality of the society is still based on market-driven type of food, fast food, certain kind of food, and also policy that is not supporting the food security, then the work of the local community will not be put into effect. So this is the major strategy. Now I will draw your attention to some specific activities that is being done or attempted by the group of BioThais. The BioThai is a foundation that working with a number of organizations all over Thailand, particularly those who are in the neighborhood of sustainable development. It also have an influence in terms of ideology sharing with the international movement like Via Campesina on food sovereignty. This network is trying to follow those 4 strategies, and I will pick only a few activities to share with you. They are raising or changing discourse on development by trying to introduce measurements. They are inventing food security index. This would show if the country achieving economic growth but might have some problem with food security. So that would, in one way or the other, indicate if the country is going to the right direction or not. And the food security index is also been made to the awareness of the local level. So the local community will develop its own food security index. So that's the plan. This is more like academic work together with actions with organizations working on sustainable development. Second, this is kind of new to Thailand, but may not be new somewhere else, is that people getting to see the importance of preserving and conserving traditional varieties. So there are collections of traditional rice variety and creating seed banks, and they are serious about it. And there are more and more farmers become member of this network trying to keep their traditional varieties. And they even go further by experimenting it with breeding, not through genetic modification, but they do a normal way of getting a new variety. Of course, organic agriculture, this is already known. A campaign on food for change that is getting into the consumers, that trying to promote traditional recipes. It's quite irony that sometimes food travel a long distance, and then it's consume energy for food to travel from one place to the other. So that is, not sustainable in the sense that food should be produced and consumed locally, and actually it's served better in terms of nutrition and health. Therefore, they are calling back all the lost recipes, particularly the ones that use local ingredients. So they combine. It looks like something trivial, combining or compiling recipes, but it's really calling back the society to to make sense, more sense of being a good consumer. And then they want to create a community model for food security, at very local level, trying to set up its own center for preservation of the rice variety, and also food producing cooperation and cooperative. So they are thinking of a provincial food security model that can be an example of this thing can be practiced and the province can secure their food supply. If you heard of a province like Phuket, you know, it's a tourist place worldwide. Phuket is not food secured. It's destroyed its own coastline because it turned into the yacht, what do you call it, arena? You know, it's this where they keep the yacht of the rich people, and it turned into a hotel and a private beach, something like that. So they need to get fish from somewhere else. And of course, if Phuket cannot survive, you know, and it depends on other places, maybe in the future tourism cannot help because it's this thing. So a community model is trying to be created, was created, you know, to convince that it's very important that community must rely on their food. And policy change is also important, as I said. Much of the work at the local level could vanish, you know, if, well, this could be an assumption, you know, I'm not sure it's true or not, but it could get stuck if it being a kind of affected by major policy. For example, we talk about patent of a life form. If the country adopt that, the effort of the people at the local level means nothing because they can't control the traditional local resources. Land reform or even modern trade, you know, the groceries, we don't go to small market anymore, we go to what do you call it, supermarket, right, a supermarket. And to sell food in supermarket, there is rules, you know, that producers do not get, you know, decent, fair price, something like that. So, and it's also eliminated small groceries and small producers. So this kind of policies affect the work at the local level. Now, I come to the point that we need to ask more questions. Since this is, or I shouldn't say this a movement on food security, I should say movement in the making, because it's the term food security is new, and the work of BioThai is also only 5-6 years. What will be the future of this kind of activities in Thailand in particular? I have some observations, but I think it's about time that this kind of movement need a thorough studies to see how it have changed Thailand in the perception of food and establishment of food security at a different level. But you know, there's no study as yet, you know, to look at this kind of work. I like to have to make some observations out of this. The BioThai, because of the key role of BioThai, you can't deny that non-governmental organization as an intermediate organization linking grassroots with a higher level, the policy community in Thailand, where democracy is not quite strong. We used to believe that we are in transition, but I think we transition back you know, after the coup. So the work of non-governmental organization, it used to be, should be subsidized, and the role of people's movement and the role of people organization should be more in the forefront. But I think in this case, it's not happening yet in that direction. So the role of non-governmental organization is very critical. But BioThai is using a different approach than other movements in Thailand. The major and the most vocalized movement in Thailand is the dam movement, anti-dam movement, for example, coal power plant movement, anti-nuclear, anti-everything, and it's called anti-development. It's labeled as anti-development. And I have observed that the work of this group is trying to divert. It doesn't want to have that kind of image and label. So they are engaging at different levels. And it's very important to engage, at the same time keep distance. I think they are trying to balance this. Engage meaning that in terms of marketing of organic farming, organic products, they work with the government. They know that the government are very keen to see things can be sold, these things on the market. So they work with the government. But in terms of GMO and patent on life form, they stood in another position. So they keep distance. So they are kind of, the non-governmental organization has to be more, have to learn how to play politics, in this kind of political regime. I mean, it's not completely open. Policy forum in Thailand is not completely open. We don't, we cannot speak about every subject. So to have a political strategy is very also important at the national level. I believe that the movements such as food security in Thailand got a lot of inspiration from the international peasant movement, like Yakushik. But the politics is very much at the national level. And they have to try to transcend the balance between two things. Bureaucracy. It's a day-to-day work of the movement. Even the finance, even the constitutions say that it is the right of the people to have access to and control over natural resources in their local. In reality, it's different. A lot of interpretation is made by bureaucracy. The other front is market. And I have observed that things go very quickly if it goes through the market. And you can see that organic products spread fast if it's commercialized. So is this a dilemma? Or is it how to deal with this? And suddenly the price of organic food rising, right? So I would say this movement, although it's in the making, captured very specific sector of the society. It's not yet well established. The question is that, will this kind of movement, alternative food security, be only alternative? That is, only for small sections of society can enjoy or appreciate and feel right. Or it can be really the real answer to the current world that you can't deny that the impact of neoliberalism coming very strong, and every front that they have to fight. I'm not sure how can they fight this game. I don't want to say it's war. I mean, it's quite big. An effort in the past 6 years, only a small effort compared to the influence of the current economic model that a country like Thailand is subscribing.